Howdy, folks. Welcome to TwoX Labs. I am Dr. Erika Miley, clinical sexologist and mental health therapist, here to help you navigate a lot of different kinds of things. But today, we're going to talk about AI in our electronic health record system. This is going to kick off a series. So, we're going to talk about all about AI in the most popular electronic health record systems. And I want you to be able to have a clue about what AI is and what it's actually doing, because I'm of the mind that a lot of these tech companies are asking therapists and other healthcare providers to essentially become educated in something that many of us, one, don't have a lot of time to become educated in, and two, are nefarious and non-nefariously. I tend to be on the side of the nefarious side, betting on our ignorance to be able to have access to our people's information. And we have some evidence of that just from some of the lawsuits that have taken place around companies like BetterHelp that have essentially taken our people's data and sold it to companies like Meta for advertising. Now, that doesn't have anything to do with AI, but I do personally take the highly skeptical route of what these companies want other than just money. So, before we begin, remember, you can get a CEU for this episode. You have to go over and join us at 2X Labs at 2xlabs.org, TWO, the letter X, labs.org. So, what will you know from this hour? We're going to go in. I actually went in pretty deep about the most popular, like I said before, the most popular EHRs. So today we're going to start from the beginning. You're going to understand by the end of this hour, you're going to understand what AI actually is and what it isn't. Learn how AI is being implemented in popular EMRs, EHRs. Evaluate the risks and benefits to client care and privacy. This in 2025, y'all, we need that more than ever. We have to consider it. I really want you to be able to be more confident in the decisions about using AI tools in your documentation and your practice overall. Because there's things that it's great at. I don't want to deny that, but I want you to feel confident in what you know about it. So what the hell is AI? This is for all of us normie people out here, not the coders, not the computer engineers. So the shortest primer ever. AI essentially equals a system that processes huge amounts of data and makes predictions. They're called LLMs, large language models, and are not like human intelligent brains. They are like chatbot brains, kind of. Brains is a very generous word. They're large language models behind many of these new tools. The key truth to remember here, AI is an in and out machine. It can't give you anything you haven't already trained it to know. Something else to keep in mind is that all over the place there is, especially around the marketing of these tools, around how we talk about them, how it's talked about in media. There's a lot of human phenomenon words that are used with AI. And I personally believe that that is purely marketing. So you may or may not have heard the word hallucination when it comes to AI or these large language models. These happen when the AI guesses wrong in a very confident tone in the text that you are reading in the chat. This is not a bug, it's a feature of LLMs when data is incomplete or prompts are vague. So let me be very clear. I'm going to say that again. It is not a bug, it is a feature. So if there's not enough information about a thing out there in the world, so if the AI is pulling from all of the internet about a topic and there's not enough information on the internet about that topic, then it will make it up or create like a false fact and create like confident tone of language when giving it back to you. That's what they call a hallucination. When in reality, those of us in this field, when it comes to a human hallucination, it is nothing like that. There's my point about using human phenomenon to describe something that is a large language model. So why? I'm sure there's so many of you that ask these questions when you come across an ad for all of this shit. Why does this matter for therapy and health records? Why should you give a shit? I hear you, because I know y'all don't have any time to be super, super concerned about this. Essentially, I know so many of you who do use electronic health record systems, you've probably seen the ads. They are selling AI as time saving and an efficiency feature. So directly hitting on something that we all know that we all struggle with out in healthcare, which is we don't have enough time. We have a lot of people to see, and they're arguing that their products are going to help save us time. But an AI inside of an electronic health record system means that more sensitive client data and patient data is being processed. Notes might be auto-generated in ways that misrepresent. Privacy and HIPAA risks are amplified, especially for at-risk populations. As a clinical sexologist who does gender affirming care and works with neurodivergent populations, works with people who have had abortions, I have worked with lots and lots of at-risk populations, and all of those things I need to, as a clinician, consider when I let a large language model near my client or patient's data. So we're going to do a deep dive. I'm going to use SimplePractice as our kind of our first deep dive. It is one of the more ubiquitous electronic health record systems for therapists in particular. It is used by other healthcare providers, but therapists primarily use SimplePractice. So their marketing AI feature is called the Smart Note Taker. What does it do? It uses AI to summarize session content from audio transcripts or note templates. Some of the things that I'm going to be needing you to consider is, how does this impact each of the things that we mentioned before? And I'm going to kind of lay it out specifically with SimplePractice. And I'm going to be releasing more hours so that you can get the deep dive on different electronic health record systems. There will also be a guide to this so that you can look at something quickly. So something to consider for SimplePractice is, where does that information live? That information lives on cloud servers owned by SimplePractice parent company, EngageSmart, acquired by a private equity firm, Vista Equity Partners. So you notice there's several things to understand of where that information could be stored, or who owns access to that information. The data is stored in AWS or Amazon Web Services, not transparent. So SimplePractice is not transparent about the model training data. So what does that mean? How are they using the data that is on Amazon Web Services, which is a separate company from Amazon itself, but still under the big Amazon umbrella? AWS is not transparent about what data are they using to train this note taker within SimplePractice. The data usage clarity is not great. It's vague. SimplePractice states AI is not trained on our personal notes as clinicians, but offers no clarity about anonymized aggregate use. So essentially, it's not clear how they're anonymizing the data. It's not clear how they are anonymizing it and then pulling all that data together. And then how is that data used after it's anonymized? So, risk to clients. This is how I'm going to be measuring it throughout each deep dive of each one of these electronic health record systems. Risk to clients. This one, it's high. And it's high for clients specifically in gender affirming care, abortion care, sex work, immigration, and neurodivergence, due to potential for subpoena or breaches. Now, like I described, there are lots of places where those data breaches could take place for this note taker through SimplePractice, and risks for subpoena. So, rating for me, SimplePractice, safety, 2 out of 5. We're going to use a 5 scale. We're going to make this real easy. It's just not as clear as I would like it to be about how safe this information is and how it's being anonymized or not. Clinical clarity. Now, this is where it does excel. It is 4 out of 5. So if you take a look at some of the samples, this is where SimplePractice does have documentation where you can see how clinically clear is it from the recording of the audio transcripts, and then the notes that they're generated from those. They do a pretty good job based on what is available to be able to view from SimplePractice themselves. Client risk, 3 out of 5. It's really middle of the road. We don't know. There's a lot of information we don't know. So this one, for me, it's something that I would be, if I were you, if I were thinking about through all of this, I would be very concerned. So that's our deep dive on SimplePractice. SimplePractice is, like I said, it's one of the more used ones. And I really think that I use SimplePractice personally. I am not personally using the AI note taker within SimplePractice because of the concerns around the data and where it's kept. I personally do not love that I don't know how that data is anonymized. So again, though, you have to take all of this information I'm giving you and make your own decisions. I'm going to be giving you other information in the coming hours of this series about different AI uses and different electronic health records. So I do want you to have some ideas about questions you should be asking before you turn on these AI tools. Number one, who owns the tool? Is the tool itself HIPAA compliant and ethically compliant? Those two, as we all know in our clinical communities, those two answers are very, very different. And it's probably very different depending on who you, as the clinician, the population you are directly working with. If you are not seeing a bunch of people who are likely at risk, you might be considering the answers to these questions differently than someone like me. Can I opt out my client's data from AI features? This is really, really important because you may be able to opt out of a note taker, but you may not know how the data is being used. AI is being used on the data that's already built into the electronic health record system. Can clients give informed consent? This is huge, as we all know, but this is really, really, really important. If you decide to use AI tools, you have to be able to give your clients informed consent, and that is something you should be asking of the tool. Is there a way? Can they see the document? Can they see the risks themselves when you present using an AI tool like this? How do I disclose this in my informed consent forms? How do I disclose this in my informed consent forms that you send out to your people? Again, this is a question that is absolutely necessary for these AI note takers or however they're using AI in that electronic health record system. How do you tell your clients or patients? So those are the biggest questions. And I think that it is helpful to really, really consider what are the risk points for you and the people that you serve. So, little preview. In hour 2, I will be interviewing somebody that I love and care about, my husband, a cybersecurity engineer, Erika Miley, to talk about what's happening under the hood with your EHR data. Also, he covers how to protect yourself and your clients. He also goes over what every therapist should be asking vendors before signing up and how to get that information and the language you need to use to get that information. And don't forget, really, I really wanted to make this as easy as I possibly could on you. Don't forget, you can download our free guide to help you assess EHRs for AI risk, whether you're in private practice, group practice, or an agency. All right, friends, let's talk about TherapyNotes. This is yet another one that is one of the most widely used EHRs or electronic health record systems for mental health, especially by folks who love that kind of structured, buttoned up vibe. Think khakis and a clipboard, but make it HIPAA compliant. Quick recap, though. If you're just jumping in fresh, I mean, I'm editing all of this together, so I hope you're not just jumping in the middle of the episode, but here we are. AI, or more specifically large language models, LLMs, are pattern matching engines trained on massive data sets. They don't think, they don't feel, and they certainly don't magically know what your client meant when they said, "I'm tired." They just remix text they've already seen, and guess what comes next. So when a company says we use AI to help you write your notes, it's using your previous writing, probably your client's words, and feeding that into a tool trained on something, though many won't tell you exactly what. And that's our trouble. That is our trouble. People, by people, I mean AI, tech companies, we need to know. We need to know, please. So any of you folks out there, SimplePractice, TherapyNotes, Come on, y'all. We need that information. The end. So today's question isn't just, is this cool or convenient? It's, where is your client's data going? And for TherapyNotes, as of mid-2025, TherapyNotes does not publicly advertise AI features integrated into their core product. What does this mean? No smart note writer, no auto summarizing from session recordings, and no in-app suggestions using LLMs. This could change, of course, but as of now, they've taken a more cautious route. Thank you, TherapyNotes. I might be switching. We'll see. They've emphasized in support documentation and in marketing that human clinicians remain responsible for documentation. Let me say, that's not a bad thing. Truly, it's not. So where is the data stored? Let me be clear too, like AWS, like we talked about for SimplePractice, is an incredibly common place for many companies to store their data. So TherapyNotes is no different. They use AWS to secure data storage in the US. They state that all data is encrypted at rest and in transit. You will hear more about that from my husband, Erika Miley, who is our cybersecurity expert, who will talk about what does that mean. So if you haven't watched that, go watch that. And if this is going to come out before it. So when it comes out, watch that. They are HIPAA compliant and they offer BAAs, or the business associate agreements. They offer these automatically, and their support documents show a commitment to PHI privacy. They do not sell your data. They do collect usage analytics though, but there's no evidence that they're feeding that into an AI engine yet. This makes them pretty dang solid on the don't feed client data to the data beast front. So risk for our clients? Low. Really, truly. I mean, it probably makes sense to you once we get to the bottom of this part, this segment, that the risk for this is much lower. They have prioritized privacy and human clinicians doing the note taking, especially low for our neurodivergent clients, our trauma survivors, our client at risk of state level surveillance, people who are looking for abortions, trans clients, undocumented folks, because they aren't integrating generative AI tools. The risk of unintentional data training is low. But something to have a heads up on is your own documentation practices matter. Don't write a novel. Don't include unnecessary identity data unless clinically relevant. And always use coded language for sex work and undocumented statuses or gender affirming care unless absolutely necessary, or any other identity. So, in summary, if you want a straightforward EHR that lets you stay in control of your documentation, TherapyNotes is a stable choice. It won't write your notes for you, but it won't accidentally turn your trauma client's disclosure into a training data for a chatbot either. My therapist rating, I would say, is pretty high for this. I would say 5 out of 5. Truly, this one is a safe choice. As of now, they are prioritizing our clinicians' documentation and allowing us to control how that documentation is used, which I think is an incredibly important part of being a clinician, obviously, but I also think it's an incredibly important as our culture and things change in 2025. So I just want to remind you that we are putting out a guide to this episode, and to get our lab report and the guide, please head to www.2xlabs.org. That's TWO, the letter X, labs.org. You are not your software, and you as a clinician are the ethical firewall. So again, this one is highly rated for safety of storage, clarity of AI use, and the risk to our clients. So thumbs up for TherapyNotes. Hang on, we're going to jump into the next one. All right, folks, let's get into the murky middle of our EHR deep dive. TheraNest. That's where we're going. If SimplePractice was your cool tech bro who definitely has ChatGPT in the Notes app, and your TherapyNotes is your librarian who still uses a pencil and a sticky note, then TheraNest is your friend who won't tell you what's in the casserole, and not considering that there might be 4 people in the room that are gluten-free. It looks nice, but what's actually happening in there? So, does TheraNest use AI? TheraNest is owned by Therapy Brands, which operates a wide portfolio of behavioral health tools. While TheraNest itself does not openly advertise AI-generated notes, the parent company has invested heavily in AI development across its platforms. That means we can't be fully sure whether generative AI tools are running in the background, especially in beta features or as part of smart suggestions. Some documentation tools include auto-filled templates, auto-fill suggests based on prior entries, predictive billing tools, but the key missing piece, transparency. There's no clear statement from TheraNest about how AI is used, where the data is sent, or whether LLMs are trained on clinician-generated content. That is a huge problem. So where is the data stored? Probably not a surprise, but TheraNest isn't super clear other than it offering a BAA and states that they are HIPAA compliant. I don't know about y'all, but I keep my skepticism hat on when somebody says they are something without giving me any details or giving me more transparency. The data is encrypted at rest and in transit, and they use US-based servers, though they don't clearly specify that includes AWS or a proprietary solution. However, again, there is no publicly detailed AI data policy. Without that, we're left with questions. Are client notes ever ingested into back-end training tools? Your guess is as good as mine. Are data features using external AI APIs? Like an API as an example would be OpenAI. So are they using OpenAI in the background and just not giving us an idea about it? I don't know. Again, your guess is as good as mine. Is behavioral data used for future product training? Your guess is as good as mine. When your work includes at-risk populations like LGBTQIA+, youth, people seeking abortion, undocumented immigrants, not knowing any of this information or not being sure where you can find it, as the customer, you are us clinicians, we are the customer, that is a form of risk. So the risk level for our clients, moderate, due to the lack of transparency. We're not saying that TheraNest is using generative AI recklessly, but without clear answers, clinicians using this platform should assume caution mode and limit excessive narrative detail or specify any identity markers, direct references to stigmatized work, sex work, undocumented status, any of that. Until we get more clarity, you'll need to do your own protective editing. Words are hard, apparently. And maybe call support and ask for a plan for plain language AI policy. And then if you get it, please email it to me because I'd love to see it. So overall, in summary, TheraNest might seem clean and easy on the surface, but under the hood, it's vague. And for us as therapists and healthcare providers, vagueness equals risk. My personal therapist rating, that's the sound. That's the sound of the rating. For safety and storage and clarity of AI use and risk clients, not transparent, moderate risk. So if you're working with survivors, again, queer folks, trans clients, or anyone targeted by carceral systems, this isn't just a back-end question, it's a safety decision. So keep all of that in mind as you make your decision about TheraNest. Next, we'll hit up Jane, which is another one, Practice, and maybe even Alma. So you can walk away from this CEU like an ethical tech baddie you are. And don't forget, download the TwoX Labs EHR and AI guide so that you don't have to scribble down notes like it's 2006. Stick around for the next one. Like I said, you're not going to want to miss it. It's all about Jane. Now, on to Jane. A little bit of a company overview. I think it's helpful to understand that Jane is a Canadian-based practice management software company. It originally was built for allied health professionals, so physiotherapists, so PT, chiro, massage, but has gained traction with mental health and integrative care. Actually, my own pelvic floor PT uses Jane. It's cloud-based, and the Canadian version, PIPEDA, I don't know what they call it. We call it HIPAA here. So that's what their acronym is, and markets itself heavily on the ease of scheduling, billing, and telehealth integration. AI features as of 2025. Jane does not have any branded AI note takers like SimplePractice, but it has begun piloting AI-assisted charting tools in beta. These AI features pull from session notes you've typed to suggest summaries and potential treatment plan updates. The AI runs on a third-party LLM, large language model, to remind you. Jane has disclosed the use of Microsoft's Azure-hosted models, meaning your client data may pass through external servers for processing. Data storage and privacy. Jane stores data in regional servers, Canada, US, or UK/EU, depending on the client's account settings specifically. AI data processed via Microsoft Azure may be stored temporarily for model optimization unless explicitly opted out of. Essentially, there's an opt-out option in the beta release notes, but not yet rolled out to all users. Jane's privacy policy states no AI data will be sold, but transparency on retention timelines is not crystal clear. Risks for therapists and healthcare providers. Because AI processing occurs outside of Jane's own servers, you need to be extra mindful of PHI in your next note text. Redacting or using a pseudonym or before using those AI features is the safest. The beta nature of AI tools means accuracy may vary. Remember what we were talking about with hallucinations when it comes to AI? The risk is very much present here because this is a beta version. Documentation for higher risk populations, LGBTQ+, abortion seekers, immigration cases could be exposed to external servers. Clarity of use and user control. Jane is more transparent than some platforms about the fact that they use external AI processing, but full technical specs are not easily found without digging into the developer notes, which once I'm there as a person, I don't know what I'm looking at. And I'm a pretty tech savvy therapist. And I don't know what that's a language I don't understand. Of course it doesn't. I'd have to go and get a whole other degrees to understand the developer notes. Users can opt out of AI features entirely, not enabling the beta. Let me say that again. Users can opt out of AI features entirely by not enabling the beta. So you don't have to be part of the testing of this feature. No fine-grained controls yet for AI on this note, but not that note. So you cannot opt in or out based on note. So that's helpful to understand that if you opt into the beta, the controls are not as controlled. We would like them to be. You don't have as much control as you would if you had just opted out of the beta altogether. So safety, clarity, risk ratings. Safety of information, 3.5 out of 5. Good compliance framework. So they are saying, hey, like this is how we're encrypting this data. They are being somewhat transparent about all of those things, but external AI processing adds vulnerability. Clarity of AI use, 3.3 out of 5. Better than average transparency, but retention policy is still murky. Risks to clients, 3 out of 5. Risk is moderate for sensitive PHI if AI is used without redaction. So the takeaway, if you're a therapist who wants a highly functional scheduling/billing platform, but is AI cautious, Jane's current beta rollout makes it relatively easy to avoid AI entirely if you do use it. Strip down any identifying information before running text through the AI until retention timelines are more transparent. That's kind of the bare bones of the overview of Jane. It's a middle of the road risk. So keep that in mind as you are choosing whether or not to use these tools. Now, on to a couple companies that are smaller. We're going to put two together because they are smaller and they're being used by less clinicians at this point. There's Cario or Caro. Kareo, and Luminello, so Luminello. Both are owned by Tebra, Tebra, and their AI features, essentially in Caro or Cario, whichever, they are currently piloting AI-driven coding and assistance documentation, at least what their documentation suggests. AI uses machine learning models to auto-suggest billing codes and to summarize visit notes. Vendor really hasn't exactly disclosed the exact AI partner. And Luminillo, more psychiatry focused. I thought it was important to include here because of that. They have a draft note feature, but it's not currently AI driven. Cario's AI planes will likely merge into Luminello over time due to Tebra's integration strategy. Their data storage is a US based HIPAA compliant servers. Some AI processing may occur on external cloud vendor servers, but it's not always specified. Tebra's, or Tebra, whichever, privacy policy allows use of de-identified aggregate data for product improvement, in quotation marks. This could include AI model training. That has me suspicious. So my ratings of these two, again, like I'm not going in as deep for these two because they are smaller and people are not using them as much. So safety of storage, 3 out of 5. Clarity of use, 2.5 out of 5. Really, the AI rollout is not fully transparent yet. And the risk to clients, 3.5 out of 5. It's medium risk. AI is enabled, especially for vulnerable populations. So my takeaway is these two are in the middle of an AI expansion. This means moving targets for privacy policies, fine for basic if you skip AI features, but don't use them yet with sensitive case notes until vendor transparency improves. Truly. On to the next one. So, on to our next, really two. So I wanted to evaluate both Alma and Headway. Now, both of these are not traditional electronic health record systems. They're more insurance companies that have added an electronic health record system options, plus hiring their own therapists, plus like it feels kind of squishy for what each one of these companies do. Full disclosure, I do use Headway to bill insurance. They are not at all paying for this video. I'm giving my full unadulterated opinion here. I also want you to remember, as I'm sure I hope you're remembering for all of this episode, is that none of this is legal advice. And please, 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 please review your vendor contracts and your BAAs with your state licensing requirements. I think we're all going to have to be doing that more and more regularly, sadly. So I made myself a chart to kind of talk through this because it's kind of convoluted because these two are a little different. So I essentially looked at their AI features and use cases for each of them, their data storage, their for PHI and use for LLM training, as well as vendor disclosures and transparency. So first with Alma, they offer an AI powered note drafting tool called Note Assistant, and it's built via partnership with Upheal. Now, some of you may have heard of Upheal. They have been creating AI tools for therapists and other healthcare providers. But I would also remember that once there's, like with other things that we've already talked about in this episode, once there is yet another company, that's usually when things get murky. States, recordings and transcripts are automatically deleted after note generation. Session data is never used to train an AI model. However, there are real-world user reports of note hallucinations. So just like we have talked about before, about the use of language around hallucinations, in these cases, it's incorrect diagnosis appearing when using the feature. The vendor disclosures and transparency for Alma are relatively strong. There's opt-in for consent, deletion of data in that consent, but third-party details, as we've talked about with others, are not great. Vendors Upheal, let me remind you, It's not great as far as full BAA terms. It's really, really unclear to an outside user. So you and I, when it comes to Headway, their AI features and use case, they offer an AI assisted notes via Pilot, your input, your summary, their AI model powered by Anthropic's Claude Sonnet. And that generates a draft for you to review or edit. So it's kind of like a copy paste situation. You will do your analysis, have the Claude AI evaluate it, and then it'll generate a draft for you to review and edit. As far as storage, PHI, and LLM training, they claim zero data retention policy with Anthropic for that feature, and they are HIPAA compliant. However, here we are again with the howevers. There is at least one public class action complaint alleging data sharing violations and third-party tracking. There's always something with these companies, right? That's why we got to keep our eyes open and stay skeptical. As far as their vendor disclosure and transparency, it's arguably better. They publish help docs on the AI feature, explicitly note encryption and BAA practices, but the litigation indicates risk of ambiguity. And again, here we have this third-party evaluation of analytics, right? And that's where it gets murky for those of us who are the customer and what we have to do with our patients and clients' data. So as far as my scoring goes, Alma, I would say for safety, they're a 3.0, clarity 3.0, reminding you of my 1 to 5 rating scale on safety and clarity. And for Headway, 3.5 for safety and 3.5 for clarity. Again, it seems like there's attempts for both of them to try to give us some of the information, but once there's a third party involved, we don't get all of the information, and that's truly where it becomes problematic. So, what I want you to be thinking about, what do you really need to know? Truly, truly need to know before using any of these platforms, especially for AI/note tools. Because I don't know if any of you have noticed, like if you've gone to the doctor recently, you're gone to get your health checkup, there are many, many healthcare providers using these AI tools, and they're going to try to ask your consent for them. So number one, consent is critical. When your doctor asks you or when you ask any of your clients or patients. Like for Alma, the AI note tool requires both clinician and client opt-in. That's why their safety is in middle of the road and not at 1. If you use a tool without explicit consent, no matter what tool it is, you open your practice to risks. And ultimately, those of us who had to record videos of any of our sessions in graduate school, you need consent. So get it if you're going to use it. Check whether the PHI is used for LLM training. Alma, in this case, claims session data is never used to train the model. This is a claim from a lot of these companies, but we need to have our eyes open here because there's already litigation taking place that we're going to find out if that's truly an honest claim or not. So check your contracts and actual BAAs and your state regulations. Don't rely solely on AI drafts because hallucination incidents are very, very real. And those hallucination incidents can be things like incorrect client history, incorrect diagnoses. And this has already been reported across AI note generators. This isn't just the 2 companies we just reviewed. Know the vendor's fallback/deletion policy. Alma, in the case that we were just talking about, says that session recordings and transcripts are auto-deleted after note generation. That's a good sign. It's hard because we don't have eyeballs on that. We don't see it be deleted. So again, it's a risk that you're taking. Use separate system if you want maximum control. If you handle, like myself, high-risk clients, trauma, sexual identity, high confidentiality needs, you may choose to keep very sensitive notes outside these platforms or avoid AI features until they're vetted. Check for litigation or data sharing risks. Headway, in our most recent case, has been named in litigation. Again, alleging unauthorized data sharing, including analytics and tracking, even if it has not been proven. All of us should be very, very skeptical I'm going to keep using that word. Remain skeptical. So my takeaway, both Alma and Headway are better than many generic tools in terms of AI transparency, but neither are perfect. Continue to, if you have high sensitivity populations in your clients and patients, sex workers, undocumented individuals, neurodivergent people, sexual trauma, trans people, whatever your caseload is, you got to take extra care. For now, if you choose one of these, opt out of the AI feature for those sessions or use a parallel note system, your private copy, to ensure full control. Always review real world feedback from therapists. We know we got forums, y'all. We have so many forums. And you can search these forums. You don't have to sit there and read and see the word unethical 100 million times in some of these forums, but you can go in and take a look at Reddit, any of the Facebook groups, and see what they are saying about these AI tools, and so that you can really evaluate what the hallucination risk could be and what if what a company is telling you is happening with the data, if it's actually true. Training your respective teams, clients about what it means when you do use AI tools. Like, for instance, just giving an example, I use an AI draft tool that you have consented to. I will review/edit everything. You can request your notes at any time. All of that helps build transparency and trust. We all know that. We all know, like, we need that consent, and going over consent builds transparency and trust. But in particular, this, because it's new, because it's all over the media, the more that you are transparent about it, the more trust you'll gain with your people. So to kind of wrap this up, I really want you all to be thinking through how AI is going to be impacting our note-taking, our treatment planning, the entire process for our workflows. But I also want you thinking about, and this leads to the next episode in the series that I'm going to tackle. I want you to be thinking about what is our responsibility as clinicians to be thinking through how our caseloads are using AI. So Sam Altman came out, I'm going to say it was like 2.5 months ago from the time I'm recording this here in October, that ChatGPT has, in the last year, 12 months, has become the number one way to use ChatGPT is for people to process their feelings and get feedback on relationships, and almost like an interactive journal. Or getting them, like, using it as a therapy replacement because of lack of access for them, or they're even using it while they are in therapy. And it is the number one way people are using it. Now, I know that the ACA is working on the American Counseling Association is working on some guidelines around AI, but we don't know. There's so much we don't know about what our responsibilities are going to be for reporting. We already have information about youth using it and having youth actually end their own lives because of their use of AI as support. So it's going to be the wild, wild west out here when it comes to AI in our field. Of course, we already all know that. And I want to try to do my best to distill it as well as I possibly can so that you can get what you need as quickly as you can. The thing that I think is also important is that these episodes are likely going to need to be changed. These episodes that I'm publishing now will likely need to be changed in the next 6 months because of how quickly the AI landscape is changing. So I'm going to be doing my best to bring you as much information as quickly as I possibly can. Now, the other episode in this series is going to be about the use of AI chatbots in romantic relationships in addition to sexual relationships, and almost like sexual material, like erotica and or porn use. So I really think we have a lot of ground to cover, and I'm going to try to get you as much as I possibly can. I really appreciate you for sticking around to the end. And if you'd like a CEU for this, please join us over at TwoXLabs.org. and pay for the membership, $150 for the entire year. The entire year. And you could get all of your NBCC/ASECT CEUs for the year. That's a deal. So hit us up if you have any questions or if you'd like to suggest any future episodes. I would love to hear from you. Please reach out to us. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your week, and I will see you next time.